wonderful. It is so amazing to see so many people connecting, having chats, collaborating. I just want to encourage you to do that all day. That is exactly what the Impact Lounge is all about. We wanted to create a space that was inclusive, without barriers, without ropes, where people can honestly just get together and share information and build connections and communities, because we felt like that was missing, as particularly at film festivals where it can often feel quite disjointed. So continue to do that throughout the day. And thank you so much for all those brilliant questions this morning. I think everyone's just buzzing with that energy of just getting together and just talking honestly about where we are. And following on from that, I think one of the main questions we often get asked is the films that we're making, the art that we're making, like, does it matter? How can we measure that? And this next panel, these next two panels, are built by our amazing partners at World Bank. And they are absolutely people that are measuring that impact and that success. And they are people that are absolutely putting their money where their mouths are at. So I'd like to give a huge warm welcome to our first panel, Entertainment as Catalyst, How Storytelling Drives Measurable Social Impact. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Welcome them to the stage. Yay.
Like.
Yeah, that's why I was.
Sorry, my bad.
All right. Bonjour à tous and bienvenue. So my name is Oluwaseyi Shola, and I am a research consultant and program co-lead at the World Bank Development Impact Group. And I am very excited to be here. I will be moderating the session, and I'm joined by quite amazing fellow colleagues and researchers, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. So good afternoon, everyone, again, and welcome. It's very exciting to be here at a place where storytelling is, rightfully being treated as an art. We have the bunch of us here we believe that storytelling works, and there's impact in how stories are being told and how that impacts a lot of topics that we think about, like health, gender, opportunities, jobs, and so on and so forth. So today we're sort of revolving around this question of that, yes, entertainment works, but at what scale, how does it actually impact some of these our norms? I am joined today by my fellow colleagues, and I will let them introduce themselves. I will start with you, Joanna.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Johanna Blakely. I'm based at the University of Southern California at a think tank there called the Norman Lear Center. And if I could have the first slide. So what's unique about the Norman Lear Center is that, of course, we do research, and our research is on the social impact of media and entertainment. But what's really unique about the operation is about half of our staff are devoted completely to translating that research to Hollywood and helping screenwriters, showrunners, producers tell more accurate stories. Because it turns out that these stories do have a palpable impact on people's knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. So I thought I'd play a short video. If you could show the next slide. We have worked on every single episode of The Pit, which is a massive, I know, they are killing it, and we're helping them kill it. Oh yeah, so we have partnered with them basically and helped them with every script storyline in both seasons. And so here's a short video sort of talking about how we work with them.
I've known anecdotally the influence the storylines can have on the populace going back 30 years to when we did ER storylines, the power of television and the power of storytelling. So in this venture, it was really that much more significant to us to meet with experts, get our facts and figures correct.
When I'm asked what the idea of the Norman Lear Center is, I have a two-word answer. Stories matter.
For 25 years, Hollywood Health and Society has been a go-to resource for TV writers to get factual information and connect with experts on the front lines of health, medicine, and science.
This organization has been instrumental in getting us, a lot of the kudos that we're enjoying.
When you have a format that allows you to reach millions of people every week, that comes with a certain amount of responsibility. And we take that to heart.
Thanks to Hollywood Health and Society, we got an all-star team of experts, both in season 1 and season 2, to draw our storylines from.
Change the narrative, change the world.
Slide, please. Thank you. We're so proud of this work. So, of course, we did an impact study to see what the impact of this really incredible show was on viewers. And we were pretty shocked by some of the outcomes. Not only were people, talking to one another about the topics on the show, but they were talking about things like, and seeking information about how to donate their blood and how to donate their organs, right? So this is, pretty high level stuff. And then I was even more excited that this show really encouraged viewers to have conversations with their families about end-of-life planning. That's maybe the hardest conversation you'll ever have in your life. And viewers were far more likely to have it after watching the show than very similar non-viewers. Next slide, please. So you might be wondering, what is it about fiction and scripted film and TV that has this incredible impact on humans? Well, there's been decades of research to try to explain that. Stories actually sneak past our defenses in a way that news and overt kind of programmatic messaging does not. We sort of set up our guard. With fiction, we lean back, we absorb a story. It's not true, so I can sort of let down my defenses. And guess what? That opens you up to thinking about the world in a new way. And there are very specific psychological processes that are triggered when you're consuming fiction, right? You get transported into a story, you kind of forget where you are, you're absorbed, you have these strong emotional reactions, and you have this strong character identification. And all of those psychological processes are very highly correlated with changing your knowledge, attitudes, and even your behavior. Okay, I'll hand it over to Victor, who's done incredible research on exactly this. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victor Orozco. I lead the World Bank's research program on the use of entertainment media for social impact. A lot of our research is based on randomized controlled trials. These methods are the same ones for testing new drugs, right? So we can retrieve the causal effect of a program on knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors. In other words, it's not correlation, it's pure causality. Examples of our studies, for example, of the TV drama MTV Shuga, broadcasted across all sub-Saharan African countries, shows that after 10 months of simply watching a season, doubled HIV testing and reduced chlamydia infections by half, and a common STD in the region, and also reduced gender-based violence by half. Causal effects, right? Or another study we did in northern Nigeria, where Sharia law is the law of the land, a very poor and traditional setting of the production My Better World, that when we showed it in community screenings, 3 years later, child marriages had been decreased by 20%, right? And many more effects, making these interventions among the most cost-effective and scalable interventions the development sector has to combat these global problems, right, of child marriage, HIV, gender-based violence, etc. So anyway, we're here because we're very interested to continue scaling up this work, a lot of this work with the support of the Gates Foundation, with professional storytellers like you guys, right? And producers, so we can combat these global challenges with global solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. All right, on to you, Sunny.
Hi, I'm Sunny Rai. I'm an AI researcher from the University of Pennsylvania. I'm a computer scientist by training, and this is just by chance that I landed here. So basically, my interest in entertainment media started with my nephew. So he used to watch these YouTube videos, and I noticed that he's watching content that I did not want him to watch. He was learning behaviors that I did not want to learn. So I thought, is there a way for me to develop a mechanism to screen those videos. Which videos should he be watching? Which norm should he be learning? So that is how my interest started in this domain. I basically wanted to make a list: read, not read, watch, not watch. And I wanted to do it as efficiently as possible. And this is what led to my work on understanding social norms in cinema. So I basically designed an approach where we look for emotions such as shame and pride, which exist basically to regulate human behavior in society. And idea is to understand what kind of behaviors are being sanctioned in movies and what kind of behaviors are being rewarded. And it basically tells you the underlying attitudes and beliefs of that society. If we are able to understand who is an idle woman or who is an idle man depicted in these movies over years, we can actually understand where is our society going and what are we telling our future generation. So this is what I have been doing, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. I mean, I told you, I'm joined by pretty amazing people, so it's very exciting to be here. I wanted to come back to you, Victor. You said something. I mean, you shared with us a few stats, some data, some of the stuff that I kind of already know. But for people who are new to this space, to our work, what about situations where this doesn't work? What are some of the situations where it falls flat? How do we sort of ensure that that doesn't happen?
So there's no silver bullet in development, investment, and work. Every generation will come up with something new and say, oh, this is the solution, right? And we can think about entertainment media being that solution now. But as storytellers, there's a good way, the right way to say a story. And often that means not only reaching the hearts and minds, but doing the formative research on your target audience, right? What appeals to them, what stories, how you say these stories, right? So a lot of recent edutainment, it's called in the sector, the use of entertainment media for social impact, uses a format and then expects good results, but without doing the required work, the required formative research and testing on their target audiences. So a national program in Mexico had already scaled this edutainment program aimed at, preventing addictions among middle schoolers. And they asked us to do a randomized controlled trial there. And we found that while effective in increasing awareness and knowledge about the risks of consuming drugs, these 13-year-old kids, the treatment basically increased consumption of alcohol and tobacco among them, right? So great intentions, but the effects were, unintended on the opposite direction. So for edutainment to work, right, as I mentioned, and you guys clearly know this, you need to do that formative research, that testing with your target audience. But also in the development sector, you can maximize the impact of storytelling by linking it with other interventions, right? The World Bank and governments and NGOs often have these community outreach programs, right? Those community leaders that are reliable messengers, right, for your message. So linking with them can also maximize not only your reach, but the actual effectiveness of this work. So yes, doing the formative research and linking it with a lot of these opportunities can maximize the impact that storytelling can have in changing attitudes and behaviors at scale. Thanks.
Thank you, Victor. I'm going to jump back to you, Sunny, actually. So you started off the conversations about using, trying to figure out what to read, what not to read, what to watch, what not to watch. And, the conversation has shifted slightly differently now because we have all these tools and we're no longer limited to sort of like smaller samples. We have access to, some of your work that I've been privy to seeing. It's you're looking at thousands and big sizes of samples. So in like very basic terms, can you tell us what and how AI-driven narrative analysis can show us a little bit more about stories and norms. Like, what is it, like, how can we best leverage the tools that we have to do such analysis?
Yeah, thank you for this question. And that is why I'm here to explain how we can use AI. So, for years, we have been relying on very basic methods for measuring representation in movies and in digital entertainment. For example, counting the number of lines a character speaks, or counting the number of times that character was seen on the screen, right? But these does not tell you how this character was presented or what was the message this character finally left on the audience. So this is where AI comes. AI helps you move beyond counting seconds or counting lines. It helps you understand the message you are delivering to your audience. And for example, in my work, because I have been focusing on social regulation, shame, it tells you how and why people are shamed across cultures, right? So if you are able to understand why characters are being shamed in movies, or for example, what are the behaviors that are being sanctioned, it tells you about the gender norms and stereotypes that movie industry is further reinforcing, right? Or what are the norms that they are trying to break. You can actually analyze this over a period of time, and you can actually measure it at scale. Like, you can work with thousands of movies, which was not earlier possible because you are manually annotating every line, and it takes so much time to even annotate one movie line by line, right? So AI, I like to think of AI as a microscope that basically helps you move beyond the surface. For example, consider expressing love to a man. A woman is expressing love to a man, right? Is it a bad behavior? Is it a good behavior? We don't know. It actually depends on the culture in which this movie is being depicted, and what is the response to this action, right? When this scene was depicted, was there a follow-up sanction by a family member? Was there a follow-up sanction by society? So these insights were missing in the previous methods. But with norms and with stories and with these use of AI tools, we can actually extract this embedded meanings that we are delivering to audience. So this is where, like, you can scale it, you can do it multicultural, multilingual. You don't have to restrict to English anymore. You can actually analyze over global cinema, right? What are the trends that are being shown in other part of world, right? Do we have something to learn from there? So I think this is where AI could be super useful.
So we're going beyond counting representation, and we're going to more deeper analysis, trying to sort of like identify shame, those norms, and how they're being portrayed in these films. Okay, interesting. I'm going to come to you, Joanna, and the Norman Lear Center. You know, you're also doing work that's helped to connect some of these analysis to real media ecosystems. So what have you learned looking across industries like Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, and what patterns really stand out for you?
Oh, for the MapGen project? Yes. So for the last 25 years, part of our research repertoire has been doing the really slow, rigorous content analysis with human coders. So we hire hundreds of students to watch thousands of hours of television and film and to tell us exactly what's going on. How are global health topics depicted? How are things like gender norms depicted? So it's slow and much smaller scale, but it's the kind of information that can help train these LLM models to be smarter. So we did it on this MapGen project in Nigeria, Kenya, and India, looking at scripted shows, a wide range of shows, a wide range of social media platforms. And what we focused on in this mini study to start was audience responses to scripted media. How are gender norms kind of invoked in the conversations that these representations provoke? We found that in half of the comments that we analyzed, gender was invoked. So it was a huge part of the conversation, but it came up very differently in different contexts with different kinds of shows, as you can imagine. So in Nigeria, we were looking at a Big Brother franchise. So there was a lot of naming and blaming, quite rude and quite out there and very explicit, something the LLM would pick up immediately. In Kenya, we were looking at responses to Real Housewives of Nairobi. And Here it was much more subtle. You know, gender norms were being invoked left and right, but it was about respectability. It was associated with class and proper behavior, right? So it wasn't being named in a way that the LLM would easily kind of know, okay, this is where women are being policed with particular norms. The most exciting thing we found is that, of course, there were counter narratives. There were people pushing back against sexist comments that people were making. And that's where we really want to focus. It's like, okay, what in the media triggered this kind of reaction, positive reaction, we think, against sexist norms? Because we want to empower storytellers to tell those stories that help audiences themselves discover that, oh, maybe we're living in a gender world that I don't really like. It could be better. We could change things.
So what I'm hearing, yeah? What I'm picking up is we're not reducing storytelling to sort of like a formula. We're just equipping to sort of be able to leverage the tools to do it better, is what I'm hearing. Great.
Yeah, kind of understanding unintended consequences. I think sometimes writers are just following their gut. They're just doing what seems normal. And they're not necessarily thinking, oh, maybe I'm reinforcing a norm that even I don't like. I would not want my daughter to live under this norm, but I'm putting it in my show. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna come back to you, Sunny, because we're thinking about, we're here at a Cannes Film Festival. And and I think there's an obvious concern. I think we've had a few conversations at various film festivals now, and there's always something that jumps out when we talk about AI, and it's this like immediate sort of worry when we start talking about automating processes or automating analysis and automating these things. So how do you explain and how do you sort of like counter that worry? How do you get people not to worry as much about using AI? Or if they should be worried, how do we manage that as well?
Yeah, I think that anxiety, this worry, is entirely justifiable. We all are worried, in a sense, about our jobs and about our future. But I would like to say that this technology, I mean, whenever we develop a technology, it's not out there to get you. It's basically to enhance whatever we are doing. So I personally like to believe that the next frontier of this technology is human AI collaboration. Yeah. And for this purpose, I already see many big tech already focusing on how to make humans work more efficiently, how to help them, collect their thoughts, ideas, how to write them better. And it's not about taking control or agency from the human when they are using this tool. For example, think of the spell check, Grammarly, right? Like when it was introduced, maybe people were like that it is influencing my grammar, but eventually we appreciate this technology, right? Now we can focus on the more core ideas rather than picking out typos in our scripts or in our writing. So ideas, think of AI like a spell check. It is there to help you, and if you do not like the suggestion it is making to you, you have the agency to refuse them. You have the agency to discard them. So for example, I mean, of course, I'm not very aware of this industry and how they work, but I can imagine that for writers, these tools can be used to track the motivations, agency, and actions of their character. Are they in sync? Likewise, for producers or for directors, maybe you want to understand what does audience want, like Joanna explained, right? That impacts research. What kind of stories do we want to tell? What kind of stories have healthy outcomes in society? Or what kind of narratives do we want to promote in real world, right? So I mean, those kind of things are there. And one very real example, when I was coming here, Joanna was telling me about her book, where she wrote a character, men and women both were equal in all aspects. But when she asked for feedback from AI, it kept on saying that women character is basically assistant of the male character. But in reality, they both were co-founders of a company. They had similar education, they had similar roles, they had similar income, everything was similar. But still somehow AI was perceiving this women character to be an assistant. So she did not believe it because she wrote the story, right? And she basically asked her editor friend, and that guy confirmed the bias. he also thought that women is an assistant of the male character. So this is very surprising. Even when the story is written in a very balanced, equitable way, the biases we are, perceiving from the story, it could be very different. The message we are perceiving from the story could be very different. So you can use AI as a simulated or audience. You can give your script and ask, like, in this scene, what do you think is happening? What kind of emotion would the character evoke in audience? Or would the audience think of this character as a tragic hero or someone who submitted to the, norms of the society and gave up the ambition? So it can help you build the story. It can help you convey your message clear. I think you guys are creative people, right? You will find a way to do so many things with it. I don't need to tell that. But I'm just saying that I personally think that this tool is here to help you to monitor the impact, and at scale, to better understand your audience and work at much more faster pace. So yeah, I hope it will be useful.
The biases are not just with the AI, they're also with us.
Oh, yeah. And my reader was actually the poet laureate of West Hollywood, a gay man, a feminist, and he misread the story as well. He was so embarrassed.
As it should be. So that brings me back to you, Joanna. From the creator, the industry perspective, what would you say the right relationship between, say, evidence and artistry is? Like, how can, again, data inform that storytelling process without completely flattening it?
I think there's this sense that either you have a documentary that's telling you a bunch of facts about the world and it's really, flat and news-like, or you have this incredible, fantastic story that isn't connected to reality, and that's just not the case. As most of you probably know, the most compelling fiction is based on real stories, on real human struggles. And so that's what we bring into the writer's room. Not only do we bring in experts on whatever health topic or science topic the writers are saying, I need some info, give me the best person on bioterrorism. We're like, yes, we'll get them on the phone right now. That's exactly what we do. But what they also get are stories from people who have suffered from precisely these sorts of social inequities or health problems. And that's, in some ways, even more compelling to the storytellers than the experts. And also what we do with the experts, before we allow any experts to go into a writer's room, we do a lot of training. We sort of help them understand how to tell their story better. And we've done this in several government agencies, in the CDC, our public health institution in the US, but also at the State Department. Because all these experts have wonderful, wonderful stories to tell, but if they don't know how to tell those stories to storytellers, storytellers will be bored. And that's not what we want. And so basically, we're just creating the opportunity for writers to be exposed to factual information, to incredibly compelling stories, and then they work their magic. Does it make it into the script? We don't know. But when it does, like with The Pit, it often works really, really extraordinarily well.
That's great. It's the support, but also allowing them have the creative
Oh yeah, they know how to do it. We don't know how to do it.
That is true. I'm going to turn to you, Victor. From the development angle, how do you sort of ensure that the storytelling doesn't just become overly didactic or overly instrumental? How do you strike that balance with storytelling?
The answer is simple. Do not ask me. That's why we work with professional storytellers, right? Like with the foundations of MTV, Discovery, and regional entertainment hubs and organizations like Population Foundation of India that work with Bollywood, right? With the top celebrities, with the top script writers, to bring gender health messaging for their edutainment format. So edutainment would be where you have, as a development partner, a stronger influence on the content, but also they work with Bollywood in following this USC model of like, hey, here are some ideas for you to consider incorporating into your script. And of course, as a commercial production that will reach many more eyeballs, it could make it or not, right? So a lot of the work we're pushing right now is to professionalize what in bureaucratic speak we call social and behavior change communications, SBCC, that are often have great intentions, but do not appeal to the hearts and minds of people. So by bringing the professional storytellers and again, doing the formative research and testing it before we scale these national campaigns, make it more effective to change attitudes and behaviors at scale.
You actually said something that I'm going to piggyback on. If you have someone in the room right now that's skeptical about all this development, talk and development work and how we give creative freedom to those who, are in charge, how would you make the case for why, someone should back this storytelling formats versus like a traditional intervention?
So in our world, right, we work with policymakers, government, development, foundations. And a common question, which is the one you are asking here is, hey, why should you invest in storytelling and not in building more schools and more clinics, right? What we call supply side investments. And I would reframe this question into look, it's not either or. Governments will continue investing in building schools and clinics, but if they don't promote demand for these services, clinics and schools are not gonna save lives nor improve children's learning if families and kids are not attending them, right? And that's where, again, we need to professionalize social and behavior change communications so we can promote that demand. And the thing is that the barriers are big, as my friends and colleagues here are discussing. Some of these norms are quite hidden, quite fuzzy, right? Hard to pick up, even by experts, even by people that, you would think would pick them up quickly in that script. Because, since the day we were born, the way our parents talked to us, treated us, and not to mention, the following decades of socialization have embedded a lot of these norms, made them normal, right? So, yeah, we do need to work with these script writers to challenge a lot of these norms, and using AI tools to see how best to adapt them for different languages, cultures, for then the human, right? The script writer, the SBC manager, to look at it and make those final edits or drop that and start from scratch. So I think there's a lot of promise in this collaboration between the boring development sector, which I belong to, and that sector like yours. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Victor. I feel like we've touched a little bit about the tools that are at our disposal. We've talked a little bit about the evidence that we've been able to see in the work that we've been doing so far. And now we're thinking about the future. What does that look like in your, with all of these things at our disposal, what does the future look like for storytelling and impact?
Yeah, we've had a lot of time to kind of hone our model in Hollywood. And about 10 years ago, we decided that it was time to sort of take it global. It's like, okay, with something like this consultancy, this sort of free service to the industry work in Bollywood, would it work in Nollywood? And so we got some Gates funding to do precisely that. And basically they were pilot programs. It's like, if we set up panel discussions and sort of convene people at often a very high level, screenwriters, producers, executives, around global health topics that they might be interested in, and we could present some research about just how effective storytelling is on audiences, that often kind of creates a sense of responsibility, which, the showrunner for The Pit was talking about. It's like, wow, my work has a real impact on people. I need to take this seriously. And also networking, awards. And it worked. We had hundreds of storyline consultations. We did an impact study in India of a long-running pentavalent vaccine storyline, right? So development, but you put it in a soap opera and it's sexy. And the more people viewed that show, which everybody viewed in India, like we didn't even have a control group. We just had people who watched it rarely versus people who watched every single episode. And the more people watched it, the more they were able to name exactly all the diseases that the pentavalent vaccine protects against. I bet most of us in this room don't know that. And these were mostly illiterate audiences in rural India, so very effective. In Nollywood, we also had a really sort of promising pilot. But at the time, TV was not really a thing, and so we co-produced the film. We brought Hollywood writers with us who were just excited to see Nollywood, how it functions. They didn't charge anything. They co-wrote a feature film that was about rape culture in Nigeria, calling it out, and all of these social norms about not intervening and not talking about it. And we found that viewers, compared to very similar non-viewers, were much more likely to say that they felt empowered to intervene when it came to a rape, to report a rape to police, and that it was unacceptable for a man to have sex with a woman who said no. That is kind of not a cultural standard. So we felt that both of these interventions were really effective, but the funding withered away, and you know how it is. Now we really want to double down. We think that now that Nollywood is the second biggest film industry in the world, we should be there offering them the same kinds of services that we offer Hollywood, because it's a very powerful industry. There are billions of eyeballs on these stories, and they're not necessarily getting the support that we've been able to give an industry like Hollywood, which is when trying to do better. Yeah.
And to you, Victor, what would you say the future looks like for storytelling and impact?
It's a sexy word in my world, scale up, but a smart scale up, right? Focusing on not doing more of the same or doing more of what promises, but scaling up what is cost effective and can change lives of billions, right? So some of these studies, results I shared with you earlier, we've also done cost benefit, cost effectiveness analysis. And we show, for example, a dollar to produce this TV drama, MTV Sugar, that had a bunch of different effects. Change attitudes towards HIV positive people. As I mentioned, half gender-based violence, half sexually transmitted infections, and doubled HIV testing. But just the HIV testing alone, if you grab that outcome and do a cost benefit with very conservative parameters, for every dollar that went into producing this season, there was a financial return. Sorry to put human lives, combining them with financial returns, but sometimes the economists, we need to do that stuff. There was a return of $150 for young people that got tested and worked for 30 years, right? That's how the calculation was done. So we need to scale up more of these MTV Sugars, right? And I think that's where the future lies, right? And link them, wire them with these development investments, as I was mentioning earlier, because I think what's more powerful than storytelling in a lot of these settings is linking it with community leaders, community interventions, school-based interventions that could magnify that story with trusted messengers, with additional financing that could go into these vulnerable communities.
Thanks so much, Victor. Scale up, that's our buzzword. I'm going to Sunny. What would you say the future looks like with the AI tools when you think about impact and scale?
I would like to sum it up like Victor. I would say be responsible. With AI, with great powers come great responsibility. And AI is actually going to give you great power. You can generate content at scale, and you can write so many stories. Now the question is, are you writing good stories? Are you writing stories that are going to bring positive change in people's life? And I think earlier there was this constant concerns that we do not really have human power to, go through every material. We cannot really, pinpoint that this was something bad and we should not be depicting it. But now you have these tools which can actually analyze these scripts at scale, help you determine the impact, help you determine the kind of messages you are, sharing with the audience. So I think responsibility is something that industry should strive for, and I mean, I personally think that, for example, in tech world also, we are looking forward to, we call this responsible AI, but basically we are trying to ensure that we are not generating content that basically steals copyrighted content, right? We are trying to make sure that whenever we are generating, we are using proper citation, we are giving proper credits to the source of that material. So likewise, I think in industry also, I would say be responsible and use this tool to monitor and promote good content, award good content. Now it's not like that you can only analyze a small set. You can analyze global cinema, and you can make this cross culture collaborations and cross culture studies. So I would say, yeah, be responsible.
Responsible AI. Thank you. Scale up responsible AI. We're taking that away. I'm going to turn to the audience and open up for. Ooh, okay. I've got a few questions already. I think I saw your hand go up first, so I'll start with you. Oh, you could. All right.
I'd love the panel to address the gap or the lack of support within the independent sectors. We've seen a lot of limitations coming from the industry for national or local productions, ones that could create social impacts, not only like in storytelling, but also in economic balance. But especially when you're drilling down into local communities, we're not seeing that presented. And I think that the industry, like studios in Hollywood, are kind of preventing that, where we look at the mini major system, studio system that was not too long ago, it actually helped that cause and kind of getting out more storytelling for impact and economics.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I live in Hollywood. It's bad. It's a bad situation. And I think the argument always needs to be made that diverse voices need to be heard on screen. That's a winning formula. That's how studios can make money. And if you create homogenous content that's made for this sort of milky middle and nothing else, you are going to ultimately lose money. So I think what we really need is economists and bean counters who can provide the research that will demonstrate to the industry that that's a losing strategy.
But it's already there.
Got to make it more compelling. Got to put it in a movie that they watch and love, right? Change their hearts and minds. Yeah, but it's a terrible situation, I agree.
Hi, Milky Middle is the one I'll have to use someday. That's a good one. My name is Ozzy. I'm actually an actor, and funny enough, I was on season 6 of MTV Sugar, so I'm quite familiar with your game. It's good work in Nigeria. But my question was, in addition to the data you have supporting these shows in, I guess, in the development stage, let's take Sugar, for example. It was broadcast on YouTube, which is good because you can get a lot of analytics back. But do you do anything as far as creative distribution where you go screen out in maybe hinterland, like schools outside of the urban areas, so that the messages can, spread even wider? Does that happen?
Yes, in fact, so the MTV Staying Alive Foundation produces this TV drama called MTV Sugar with a lot of the top talent, African talent, right? Like yourself. Lupita Nyong'o was there in the early seasons, for example. It tops, the rankings in different countries, right? Because it's real entertainment, right?
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but then they embed the positive messaging, no? Now, the World Bank and other development agencies and foundations and governments grab that content and then take it to thousands of schools, thousands of community centers through HIV sensitization campaigns and sex ed, let's say it's called in the US, no, in schools, right? And there's the Sugar Manual, right? So, hey, here's some screening. And then, they ask the classic questions. Are you the Joey? Are you this character? And then let's talk about it, right? And you have some peer educators there, so it's not weird that you're talking about sex with your teachers, right? So it's one of these development interventions I was alluding to. So there's a lot of that work that happens. Unfortunately, for the norm, the content is not an MTV Sugar, right? It's the classic sex ed video many of us saw growing up that didn't reach, the hearts and minds of the teenagers. So there, I think, is a very natural extension of the work. But now we live in the AI world, right? The social media world. And that's another opportunity, I think, to link short clips with apps, with chatbots, with social influencers, nano, micro, to target different audiences with positive messaging. And that's some of the work we're also, leveraging the AI work of Sunny and colleagues.
Just to add to that, it's a combination of the two. It's like the community screenings still are needed to reach the places that you cannot necessarily reach with the social media, but then also to reach more eyeballs, we leverage the tools that we do have at our disposals as well. So.
And if I may quickly add, in Hollywood, quite often we will get the show to make a PSA that runs right after the end of the show, and then we look at the hotline to see how many times people called. And it's often very, very effective. Yeah. Cheap, effective.
Yeah, that's actually a nice segue to my next question. I'm Sam. I'm a co-founder of hearmenow.org. It's in association with the Montessori Model and United Nations. So we use AI-powered, it's AI-powered platform. So my question is, on one side, there's AI that's very helpful to build scale, but it's not sustainable. So is there a way that we can use AI and still be sustainable in scale, on scale?
Could you add more about sustainable? What do you mean?
So every time, I don't know if a lot of people know that, but every time we use AI, it's using a lot of water. And water, obviously, and clean water is scarce and valuable. So, and a lot of people don't even know that using AI uses water. That's one. On the other hand, it's just growing, and people are investing more in data centers all over the world. And we are here in Impact Lounge, and we are talking about AI, which is totally, it's not sustainable. So I was just curious how we can kind of find a balance between AI and sustainability.
Yeah, that's a very important point, and I truly agree that it is consuming a lot of resources. And like I said, be responsible. At least in AI community now, I'm reviewer for most of these AI conferences and where these research comes for publishing. And we in our community, we have made this compulsory that we have to report the number of amount of compute you used, amount of token exchange that happened, impact on like carbon footprint. So that is how we are quantifying, and we are also trying to normalize that it's okay to use smaller models when you are proving a proof of concept. So I would say that it's not necessary to use this highly sophisticated large language model for all tasks. For example, when it comes to predicting whether a discourse has some form of sanction or not, it's a very simple classification task, and you do not need these sophisticated reasoning models with trillions of tokens. So I would say to make it sustainable, we need to start with evaluating the objective we are trying to achieve, and we need to find the right model which fits the optimality pattern. So I think we do not want to discard AI because it's an amazing tool. It really helps you, but we need to just quantify what we are using, and does it make sense to use this much resources for solving this task?
We've got a question in the back.
Hi, my name is Marco Delgado, and as a young independent student filmmaker, kind of finding my way through the film industry, how at my age can I make an impact?
Starts with a really good story. Surprise, surprise. Something that really resonates with people, And it's not necessarily about messaging, it's about building that emotional response, creating opportunities for character identification. And here's a nice trick. If you can get people who don't look like that character to identify with that character, that's really powerful. Because quite often in our studies, we find, okay, who learned what by watching this storyline? And it turns out over and over again that what people learn came out of the mouths of the people that most look like them, right? So the trick is getting people to identify with characters that don't look like them. So I would issue that as your big challenge.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good response. Do we have any other questions in the audio? Oh, we do have one here. Thank you.
Now that we have, my name is Julio Lopez Velasquez. I'm a producer in Beverly Hills, and I have a film over here, Top Queens, in the market too. My question is, if we're going to be using AI to check our scripts and everything, and we're going to get data from that, the WGA right now has a rule that you're not supposed to be using AI or the Oscars to. As a matter of fact, if you have any AI on your films or your scripts, that you won't qualify. So how you balance that in order for us to write a story that is truthful to us, but at the same time we use the tools and we can be disqualified now. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't know how you balance that, to be honest with you.
It's a very important question, and as a researcher, we are also struggling with this question. Now people are submitting papers completely written by AI models. Author is ChatGPT or, for example, Claude. So, but I think this question has to be, it's a policy question, right? Like community has to come together and discuss what is considered as a useful use case, what is a bad use case, right? And I think community will have to together decide how do we want to see AI in our work. So, I mean, in our space, what we have defined is that certain kind of use is acceptable, whereas, when you are using AI to completely generate ideas or write the paper, that is not acceptable. That will not be accepted in the conferences, for example, exactly. Or it will not be accepted by the publication. For example, for us, your Oscar is journal publication.
That's our Oscar.
That's our Oscar. So we will also not be considered in our Oscar stage. Okay. But this is what community has decided. But it is not prohibiting you from using. I mean, at least in our community, we have decided not to prohibit use of AI. It can be used for enhancing your ideas. It can be used for generating more. Meaningful visualization that is quickly understandable by the readers of the paper. It can be used to convey your ideas in a more simpler manner. People are also using these tools to convert them to videos to improve the reachability. So I'm just giving you ideas. This is how we have figured out. And I think you will have to start discussion within the community. Like, we need to figure this out. We cannot simply make a blanket statement that do not use AI. People are already using AI. Creative economy, creative content creators, they are already using AI. And it's up to us. How do we monitor? How do we give the best guidelines so that they do not go astray and using it for the bad use cases.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think just from using your tool as much as I have and what I've heard about it, one of its powers is it's not only a microscope, but it's also a macroscope, right? It's looking at tens of thousands of movies from around the world. And so it's kind of telling you something about the narrative ocean that we're all swimming in. So it's not necessarily helping you fix your script only. It's telling you what are the norms that you would see in this country, in this region, in this genre of films, in this country. What is normal? And how do I want to fit in that? Do I want to be in dialogue with that? Do I want to be more progressive? Do I need to be a little more traditional in the way that I'm facing the audience? So it's giving you a sense of a scaled vision of the narrative oceans that we swim in. And it's really hard to know what that is unless you have tools that are as powerful as LLMs.
And I'll just wrap that up with saying policies do not change overnight. It requires a lot of these sort of like iteration, creating guidelines, putting the research out there and saying that these are the ways in which we will responsibly use these tools at our disposal. So, yeah. I just want to say a big thank you to my panelists. Thank you for such an amazing conversation, and I hope you all enjoyed it.